has been leading the hospital administration and all its faculty during its fight with the pandemic. Sir has an extensive and elaborate administrative experience as he has been part of diverse and multiple national and international organizations. If I have to elaborate on Sir's experience, I don't think time would be enough today. So I'm going to cut myself short and hand it over to Sir. And I heard that when Uday Sir informed our MS about the conference, he was very enthusiastic to share his insight. And so we're really eager to know, Sir, what you have in store for us.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you clearly.
Thank you. I'll share my presentation. Just give me a minute. Thank you very much and very good afternoon to all of you. The esteemed speakers, very learned and well-known resource persons, panelists of this very important conference, delegates, students, and my fellow colleagues. It's indeed a very pleasant and very thanking to be here to discuss something which I thought would be of very much importance to all of us. And as we all have been gone through these unprecedented times where the COVID-19 pandemic had taken us, I mean, not only the people here, everyone across the world, and something that during the course of the treatment and during the course of the management of this pandemic, I thought this would be relevant to discuss as part of the outcomes that we have witnessed. And I have titled my topic as Missing Middle During Pandemics and the Economics of Investigational Therapy. Now, if I have to talk about the systems approach to know what is the missing middle.
Sir, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we are not able to see your slide, sir. It's still on health economics, the folder.
Yeah, it is. Is it so?
Yes, sir. Maybe you could close and start it again, sir.
Am I set?
Not yet, sir.
Did you get it?
It's still on the folder, sir. I can see your folder. Double click. Yes.
Now?
Sorry, sir, no.
Sir, Shilpa here. Do one thing, sir. Sir, minimize the Zoom and open your PPT. Minimize the Zoom and come back to your desktop.
Yeah.
And open your PPT.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Now let's come back to Zoom, sir. Now share screen. Hope you are in the Zoom.
Yeah, I am.
Share screen. Share screen.
Yeah, I have shared screen.
Now I think in the icons you can see your PPT, right? PPT icon.
Yes, got it.
Yes,
sir.
exactly.
Now we can see you.
So slideshow, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay.
You could put it on slideshow, sir. The icon below. The cup, sir. Yes. Yes. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I thought I would deliberate today on the missing middle during pandemics and the economics of investigational therapy. We all know that there was a lot of drugs that have come and gone, right from hydroxychloroquine to remdesivir to Fabiflu, and each one has had come and then it had its own day, and then again there has been it's like a curve. It rises up suddenly up and then comes down. So and then there was the the cost of the treatment and the cost of managing this pandemic. So this is something which I thought I would deliberate upon, and then to understand the missing middle, of which I would be talking to in a little later slides. I would like to put up the systems approach. Now, if you see the systems approach, there are about 5 bullet points that I have put. One is the on the left hand side, where you find the basically the structure, the health infrastructure, and on the right side you have the stakeholders, like it may be the community, it may be the doctors, it may be the it may be the researchers, like the all of you here. It may be basically it is all the people who are delivering as well as utilizing the services, and then there's a leadership and governance on the right side. This between these two, there's an interaction, which is the healthcare funding, which happens, and then definitely it is the outcomes which we have seen. I do not know whether we have managed the COVID very successfully. The pandemic has been managed very successfully, but in management there are no wrong answers. There can only be better answers. So this is an effort. And when we talk about economics, it is about maximizing the value of money and achieving the maximum outcomes at the least cost. And I'm sure the previous speakers, when we started off from from yesterday, we started out from real world model, real world data, and then we had the last speaker talking about the patient related outcomes. And we all have been talked much and listened about the humanistic, economic, and clinical outcomes. Of course, these are the ones which we try to maximize at the least cost. This is what we mean by economics. And in the health infrastructure, I mean to say it includes everything. It includes the manpower as well as the material. But in healthcare, there is a separate material which is a very special characteristic, that is the drugs, vaccines, sera, blood and blood products, biologicals, implants, and other consumables, which I would like to group it as the pharmaceutical products and pharmaceutical services for convenience. How do we maximize, of course, from a voice of a customer, or from the utilization point of view, the 3 A's are often talked about: the availability, affordability, and accessibility. Now, once the service is available at an affordable rate, at an affordable cost, and is accessible to me when I need it the most, that means that system is is good. Now, the outcomes is about two things. One is how well the resources are utilized. It may be the manpower, it may be the healthcare funding, it may be the infrastructure. And the second one is about the cost and consequences of the available pharmaceutical products and services. Well, I did talk to you about the special nature of this particular material, which I call it the pharmaceutical products and services. And we have talked a lot of things about the consequences which are linked to the outcomes. Now, I will just, this is a slide that I have taken from the WHO. And if you see the cost aspect of pharmaceutical products and services, and who is funding it, how much of it is funded by the state and how much is funded by the private, if you see in all the phases, of drug development, the the public sector is not very great. It is the large pharma companies in all stages of the drug development, are the pharmaceutical product and services. In all stages, it is the you can see that it is the private funding rather than the public sector funding, because R&D is research and development, preclinical development, or any other phases of clinical trial. You find that these the pharma companies have a lot of um, spending for the drug and the pharmaceutical products and services. So when you see this, we can infer that the spending on is from not only from the public sector, but to a large extent from the private healthcare private companies. Now, coming to the optimal resource utilization, I have talked about the 3 A's, and then comes for the healthcare funding for services, that is the payer's perspective. Now, the expenditure from a payer's perspective is basically, we talk of 3 types of payers. One is I pay for myself, that is out of pocket expenses. Then private health insurance, when it's a collective where the large number of people go for insurance, and the premium is used to to bear the treatment cost of the sick. And then there's the government social schemes and insurance, which is basically the state funding. Now, I have taken 2 articles. One was from the Deccan Herald, which was recently written by Dr. Sudarshan, healthcare's weakest link, providing for the middle class. And the other one was in the Economist in 2018 in January, where it has talked about the middle class as India as a whole, where its middle class should be. Now, to tell you what the middle class is, I put up this picture from the Economist. Now, on the orange colored one is about this graph is not about the population, but this graph is about the wealth. And about 10% of Indian adults are in that rich bracket. That is, 1% is very rich, and 9% a little richer population, and that 1% is almost equivalent to the like Hong Kong population, and that another 9% is like the European population. And then there is another small I would say the poor population, which is the urban poor as well as the rural poor, and there is something in between, which is about 30 crores. That means about almost a quarter of our population, and about 31% of the Indian adults who are in the middle class range. Now, why this? Why do we call this a missing link? Probably we will analyze that in our coming slides. To say if you see this 10% of the population, they have. If I go back to see and see, they can afford both out of pocket as well as private health insurance, and whereas the poor, they are completely relying upon the government spending. So if the government spending is not there, I think probably it will be the most difficult in all the ways. It is even if it is available, it cannot be affordable, it will not be accessible. But then I think the government has done something for them, and they have been able to utilize the government funding for the healthcare. But here in the middle class, which is about 31%, it's pretty difficult for them, because the insurance and out-of-pocket expenditure are also it is very difficult for them to bear the cost of healthcare, rising healthcare, and especially in pandemics. Let us see what has happened. This is an economic overview that I have put out, and I have taken some of the more hospitals in Dakshina Kannada district as well as the district as a whole. Now, this one is one private hospital, and if you see that 83% of its patients, that is of the total of 1,035 patients, 83% were the government spending. Though it was a private hospital, they were government spending, and about 6% was out of pocket expenses, and then 11% had some or the other kind of health insurance. Now, this is another private hospital where we had about 62% of, again, government spending, and 27% was out of pocket expenses, and 11% had private insurance. Again, one more private hospital which is comparable. So here it was almost 50% had got the government funds, or they had relied upon the state funding for their COVID management, COVID treatment, while another 50, that is 30% and 20%, were out of pocket and insurance, which was private insurance. Now, this one is another private hospital where almost 100% had private insurance. This is again a private hospital. Now I'll talk about a district, the entire district, wherein okay, this is about the entire district. If I consider all the government and the private hospitals put together, if you find it's almost about 55% had the utilized government funding, and about 26% were out of pocket expenses, and about 19% had some or the other kind of it is the out of pocket expenses is about 26%, and 19% is private insurance. Now, to sum up, in the government hospital, it was 100% government or the state funded treatment, and in private hospitals, out of I think almost up to 60 to 65% had relied upon the government funding, and very little people had out of could afford out of pocket expenses. So the monthly income of a middle class family is about it depends, and it is about 45,000 rupees is the recent classification they have given, and the average salary per person in that family is about 15,000. This is per month, 15,000 per month. Average hospitalization for COVID was about 7 to 10 days. Now, I have given this because if you see, there is a cost to remdesivir itself is about 40,000. The per patient per treatment cost of remdesivir itself was about 40,000 rupees, and the reason why the out of pocket is just not possible, because if you see, even just the cost of remdesivir itself will cost a month's salary. So what are the other things? Now, in Karnataka, there was a government ceiling, and the government paid about 5,000 rupees for a general ward, and for 7,000 for some critical care, and 8,500 for critical care in the ICU, and about 10,000 rupees per day for critical care with ventilator. So this was the government rates which the government has given the private hospitals, and also permitted them to charge their patients on again a similar kind of a ceiling for the insurance as well as out of pocket expenditure patients. So this is there on your slide, so you can as well understand the kind of cost that the, uh, the economic burden that has been inflicted on to our population because of this pandemic. And but if you see as a whole, you might be wondering why is this part of total expenditure is 60% when it comes to healthcare. But then that was before the pandemic, because 60% of the healthcare spending by the population was out of pocket expenditure. But if you see the previous slide, you will see that it is just not possible to have out of pocket expenditure, and people did not have private health insurance. So that is the magnitude of the problem, because about 30 to 40 crore of people who used to have 60% of their total expenditure, who should bear the 60% of healthcare cost, could not just bear it because of the high expenditure. And the average cost per patient in this district we have found is about 70,000 rupees. Now, is it now again coming to the basic question, whether do we need to have health insurance, or do we, in such pandemics, do we need to have insurance is the best answer, or state funding is the best answer, or out of pocket, because you have to spend for your health. Now there are no correct the one simple answer for that. And there were a lot of studies on one of the best studies is the RAND health insurance experiment. And this actually talked about how much more medical care will people use if it is provided free of charge, and what are the consequences for their health. Now, insurance per se does not answer this in cases of pandemics, because we have already seen that there is a lot of the risk is lot, and the number of people exposed to the risk is huge. But when coming to the same experiment, the health insurance experiment, cost sharing did not significantly affect the quality of care, but then cost sharing in general had no adverse effects on participant health. Free care led to improvements in certain areas, when there was some good outcomes in cost sharing when insurance was done. So basically, this 30% of Indian adults needed some kind of help or some kind of person to bear this cost. And where this cost comes, if you are talking from the public funding or the state funding, then it is the taxpayers' money. Finally, it is we are going to fund that as public healthcare spending, because it is the taxpayers' money. So, does India have that much of taxpayer to bring that much of cost to the to control these kind of pandemics? Yes. To conclude, we found that the capacity of the public health institutions, that the government hospital during the pandemic, seems to be very low, because out of the total number of patients treated, if you see about 8,176 in the government hospital, it was about 1,030. So it's only about 15% capacity. So I think the health structure should be improved. The capacity of the public health institutions should be improved. Then the cover of private insurance in pandemics is only about 19% of the total patient, and 55% to 60% of the total was from the taxpayers' money. That is the government insurance, or I would say it is the government schemes that I'm talking basically on the Karnataka government model, which the Ayushman Bharat was provided, and that was the rate ceilings that I showed to you. So 55% relied on them, on that particular funding, So will increasing the private insurance cover, will it be sustainable? Will it answer to the pandemics? Increase the number of more healthy and young under insurance, where their premium will cover the sick. Probably that's again a question mark, because the number of at risk during pandemics is enormously large. Will it decrease the burden on health services? Yes, we do not know, but definitely the taxpayers' money from 55% will be coming down if a large number of private insurance, if large number of people opt for insurance and take insurance. So this is some of the learnings that we have seen, and the coming to the investigational therapies, which had which have been the talk for all these COVID months. The best outcomes for least cost during pandemics, for the cost and consequences of the available pharmaceutical products and services, and how well resources are utilized optimally. So this was what I talked about, the resources being utilized optimally. But now I will focus a little bit on the cost and consequences, especially the costing part of it, with respect to the investigational therapies. Now, the investigational therapies, as we all have seen, a lot of drugs did come. And what was the reason? Because there was no standard treatment, no gold standard, but the situation required some action. It was an exigency. Then it was backed by some scientific fact, which showed that, which was not with. We have seen yesterday that the strength of evidence. We have seen the meta-analysis, the random control studies, all the RCTs. All those things have got a lot of evidence, but here we do not have that much of scientific and proven efficacy or toxicity or preliminary evidence on the effectiveness towards the disease condition of these drugs. But then there is a very exigency situation in hand which has to be dealt with. Then the practice, there is no rational indication among general population, but have restricted use based on the evidence-based practice. And we also had in the yesterday's discussion, we have talked about case reports as one of the major source of information. So these are the reasons, the rationale for investigational therapy. And if you see here, generally they are not indicated in general population, but then in selected cases they are used because some information is already available, or they are still under investigation for safety and efficacy. And yes, these drugs have high cost is involved for preclinical and clinical study. Investigational drugs are probable candidates under experimental use and thus have off-label indication. If you go, CDSCO says has put almost every drugs that had been used in COVID as off-label indication. And if you see, it started with hydroxychloroquine, then went into remdesivir, Tamiflu, then convalescent plasma therapy. Everything was labeled as off-label for that particular use. And then the Indian context, the legislation is the new Drugs and Clinical Trials Rules 2019, which have also superseded the Schedule Y and D, Y of the Schedule Y of the Drug and Cosmetic Act of 1945. And of course, the off-label usage have been mentioned in the Act. Now, to talk about remdesivir, this is something which I got from ICR ER Review, which is one of the premier organizations which does this studies. And initially, the minimal marginal cost, which they told, was from $10 to $600. And then after doing almost after adding to all the benefits, survival benefits, and then the R&D cost, all those things, you can see that it has come from about $600 to about $5,000 as the base price. You can very well understand the cost escalation. Now, in this district, you can see that on the right hand side that when remdesivir came, everybody thought that it is a wonderful drug, but remdesivir then again very recently there is another study which says remdesivir has little or no effect on survival, says WHO. Now, here in our hospital, about 1,035 patients were treated for COVID, and 918 they came up to the phase of recovery, and the deaths were about 117. Out of these 918 patients, 180 patients received remdesivir. A total of 765 injections were used. Now, if you see that the 6 doses used, so the average cost to patient is about 40,000 rupees for remdesivir alone. So when I showed you the last slide where I spoke that per day is about, if the patient is on ventilator, the cost that is given by the government is about 10,000 rupees, and here we have got 40,000 rupees just for the sake of a single drug. Similarly, Fabiflu, one more drug, Favipiravir, again, now there is again, is Favipiravir good for COVID-19? Clinical trial says no, but then we have used it. Each cost to patient was about 1,300 rupees, and it was costing about the treatment, the complete treatment was costing about somewhere between 8,000 to 15,000 rupees. Hydroxychloroquine came with a big bang, but again, keeping the safety concern, the drug was not recommended and discontinued by WHO. Similarly, convalescent plasma, again, it brought us some big hope. 52 patients in this received convalescent plasma therapy in this particular study hospital since July 2020, and the cost of therapy ranged from about 10 to 18,000 rupees, and the average cost of was around 11,000 rupees. This convalescent plasma itself costing you just the plasma itself costing you about 11,000 rupees. So you can very well understand the kind of the economic burden that that these treatments, these investigational treatments have therapies have put on us. And to conclude, even though information related to risks and benefits of investigation therapy in relation to COVID is still at its infancy, the cost of treatment we have seen is very, very high. So we need some studies. Health economic studies serve as the best tool for analyzing the most accurate. Therefore, such studies attain superior value, especially in the Indian scenario. And I'm sure that this is the same story probably everywhere across the world. So thank you for listening to my patient listening. I am open to any suggestions or questions.
Sir, thank you so much, sir. I think we couldn't have had a more appropriate person who has been in the midst of the challenge and handled all the pharmacoeconomic and the outcome side of it. And still, I think we've done a very good job. The hospital is doing good. And thank you so much, sir, for being an efficient leader, for being an enthusiastic participant as well, along with us in this conference. Thank you, sir. So, with our MSS talk,